Hey guys, this is Danielle Gardner, and I'm here today with one of my colleagues, Kim Maree, to talk about something called the 13 Sacred Nights of Winter, or maybe just the 13 Sacred Nights of Christmas as well, is probably another way to say it. So let me introduce you to Kim. Hi, Kim. Thanks for joining me today in this conversation.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now, on your website, I'm just going to read, it's a little bit paraphrased, but I wanted to start by reading this because I just thought it was so interesting. So you say, there is a map available to us every year that can be uncovered during the 13 sacred nights of winter, also known as the Holy Nights. This map aligns us to our true path and supports us in navigating the challenges and opportunities of the coming year. So I realized in preparation to, I saw you talking about this, and then I sort of realized that, oh yeah, so it's not a thing that you made up, right? It's a thing out there. These 13, nights, and I've never heard of it, and I was brought up Catholic, and all this sort of stuff. So I'm quite interested in kind of the history, the tradition of this, when these nights start, when they finish. So over to you. Tell us a little bit about the brief history, or whatever you know about this tradition.
No, I too, I grew up with a Methodist parent and a Catholic parent, and so all Christian but different denominations. And I had never heard of the Holy Nights. I had never really understood. I mean, maybe I heard the phrase or something, but we certainly didn't practice them or pay attention to them. And later on in my life, I started hearing more about this, and I thought, what is that? What exactly are the Holy Nights,
Yeah.
And growing up, I loved Christmas. It was my favorite time of year. And I started to, I'd feel a certain letdown after Christmas. And I know a lot of people can go into kind of a depression, Christmas is done, family goes home, everything's like, okay, now what, but yet we're still kind of in this holy season or this holiday season. And to be clear, this journal is not Christian based. I really look at it as, like, over my years of learning, I've studied indigenous wisdom and feminine mysteries and all of this. And they're also called the Sacred Nights of the Mothers. And there's also this aspect of diving deep within ourselves, and it's considered the darkest nights of the year. And so even looking back toward pagan traditions and indigenous wisdom, looking at the winter solstice, really, and the return of the light, you have this darkest night of the year in the northern hemisphere, of course. And then supposedly the days start getting longer, but what we find is you don't really notice they're getting longer for about 12 or 13 nights, which is really fascinating if you really start paying attention to it. And the moon cycle is 29 and a half days. And there are, if you divide that into 365 days of the year, you end up with about 12 nights left over. And so historically, these 12 nights are considered this opportunity, almost where it doesn't literally happen, but the idea is that time pauses, and we have this opportunity to tune in to a very thin veil between the earthly realm and the spiritual realm, you could say, and tuning into our inner guidance, our inner wisdom. And if we pay attention to it consciously, we're able to work with it in the coming year. So it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. And what's interesting, we were just talking before about how I just ran my winter planning circle, and also the summer planning circle for those in the Southern Hemisphere. And, really, they very much resonate with the winter vibe, though, because even though the energy might be supposedly, more social and all of those sort of outward expressions, they're also saying, yeah, but it's that quiet time, in terms of business and all of that. So it's like this same vibe is there as well. So And you were saying before that, yeah, we're gonna get to your lovely journal in a moment, but that it's something that it doesn't matter if you're in summer, you know, you can still really benefit from just even this process of this inward reflection and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. There's an in breath that happens in the winter for all of us. We kind of tune in, and an out breath in the summer. And ideally, you know, those in the southern hemisphere would also be looking and thinking about this in their winter solstice, so that the both sides of the earth, you can almost think of it as people are holding each other. It's almost unfortunate that Christmas is celebrated at the same day everywhere on the planet, but because it is, tuning into that and into that, you know, Christmas is representative of the return of the light. It's representative of like this new birth. And that's really what these sacred nights are about, is what wants to birth within you. And so as long as you feel tuned into that energy, you can do it at you know, during that time, whether it's summer or winter. Yeah.
So can you share a couple of your like favorite ways to sort of tune in during this time? I know you probably have a bunch, but what did you start with? What works really lovely for you?
Well, you mentioned before, like it's often considered this busy time of year. And that's exactly what I personally chose to step away from. You know, my mother would make Christmas really beautiful, but she'd always be exhausted by the time Christmas Day came. All the preparations, all the running around, all the baking, all this and that. And I thought, well, if you can't enjoy the day, is it really worth it for all that hustle and bustle? And then when I learned more about this idea of turning inward, for me, you know, it begins with the beginning, you know, with the winter, I start turning in and just getting quieter, spending more time in meditation, taking warm salt aromatherapy baths, you know, those kinds of things. And then during the nights themselves, my journaling process is absolutely the number one thing that I pay attention to. It's an opportunity to tune into your dreams, which they're usually more potent during that time, even if we haven't noticed. When we start paying attention, it's like, oh yeah, they really are. They're showing up more during that time. And so paying attention to dreams, reflecting on the past, envisioning the future, and also tuning into how we show up. You know, how am I showing up each day, and how do I want to show up in the coming year? And journaling about that. And when we do that, it gives us guidance or like a hint as to how the new year might unfold, because 12 of those 13 sacred nights actually map to a month in the coming year.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to ask you about. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, is day one January, or is it sort of day two?
So day one begins December 24th, which is Christmas Eve. Okay. And that I see as the entry into the womb space, you could say. And so that is kind of that 13th night. That's this sacred night in itself, where we can just kind of be. I personally love to light candles on my Christmas tree that night. And I light them like a light of gratitude. You know, I'm thinking gratitude for the past year that's been, and reflecting back. And then the nights after that, the 12 nights after that go up until January 6th, which in the Christian tradition is considered Epiphany. But I also recently learned that it's also considered the mother's Christmas. And I thought, oh my goodness, that's amazing. You know, there's this beautiful tradition that comes out of many wisdom traditions. And so we're looking at this, you know, these nights of the mothers, this womb space, and each night from December 25th until ultimately January 5th to 6th, those would map from January, February, and yes, that's how it would work.
Every time you mention the mother, what did you call the mother?
The Nights of the Mother?
The Nights of the Mother.
Christmas?
Yeah, I think it was the Nights of the Mother and the Mother Christmas. I just get goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah. So, so the way it sort of works is when you're doing this reflection and different things you might want to do, it's sort of like whatever comes up on day two is kind of telling you something about the month of January, right?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. So I had one year where I was remodeling my home, And I wasn't doing that during the sacred nights, but I was doing that during this year after a sacred nights. And I had a situation where the contractor walked off the job. He just decided to take a different job instead that felt more lucrative or something. And I thought, what's going on? And I turned back to my journal and I looked at what I wrote in the journal connected with that particular time of the year.
Yeah.
And I had a dream about betrayal.
Wow.
And what's interesting is not just, so a lot of times when you're recording the information, you don't know what it really means.
Yeah.
But what I did was a lot of times, like I might write, oh, I woke up with this dream and it feels like an energy or a mood of betrayal. I don't really know what it's about. Like I'll be journaling like this, Yeah. And then something will come through and I'll keep writing. And inevitably the guidance that I needed to get through that challenge was in my writing.
Yeah.
And this year, 2020 has been a crazy year for people. I literally had dreams that I was walking down the street and I ran into one of my children's teachers. This was in a dream. And I'm like looking for something. She said, oh, don't worry. All the schools are closed. The hospitals are full. It doesn't matter. And of course you have no idea what that's about, but our dreams and our messages, if we're willing to take that quiet time, are so potent. And then usually if we're willing to just keep journaling, not just jot down the dream, but just kind of write about what your feelings are or what your mood is, there's often something that comes, and then you can refer back to it when you're having some challenges and go, what was happening in the sacred nights? What kind of messages was I getting? Maybe there's some guidance here.
Yeah.
And I find it, again, I've been doing this for 15 years and I'm blown away. Every year there's something really potent that I get out of it.
So it's almost like a bit of a, I don't know if forecast is the right word, but it's sort of a little bit in that vein. It's not like,
it's
I don't
prophetic.
know. Yeah. And so you can, so it's like you can be giving yourself a heads up about the vibe that, was in your journal. And then if you run into difficulties, refer back to it and see what guidance did you have for yourself back then.
Exactly. And I include journaling about what I call the virtues. There's 12 virtues, one associated with each of the constellations through the zodiac. And so and Aristotle defined virtue as the mean between the too little and the too much. And so there's this opportunity to look at how do we show up as too much or too little and find this middle way that helps keep us aligned with our path. And often by the end of the sacred nights, one or two virtues stands out. And you might have heard of people choosing a word for the year or something like that. So sometimes that might be my word for the year, or it might be something that I just choose to, align more carefully with and pay more attention to throughout the coming year. Or I can just work with each one during the month in the coming year. So lots of tools that help us, even if not always prophetic, definitely just supportive and helping to keep us aligned on our path.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about your Sacred Nights journal. So you have, it just sounds like you came across this tradition, started practicing it yourself, noticed that it was making a big difference and decided to create your own journal full of the practices that you've been using.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been journaling for 15 years. And this will be my 16th, so I'm coming upon that. And this is my seventh edition of my Sacred Nights of Winter
and
journal.
I just bought mine today. Yay! I'm really looking forward to that.
So it's actually 100 pages and it's full color print. And you get about 6 pages to work with each night. And you don't have to do everything. Like I said, there's room to reflect on the past, envision the future, contemplate the virtue. I have a theme each year, and this year's theme is Lights of Self-Leadership. And I feel like as leadership and systems and structures are falling all over the world, we are needing to tune into who is our inner self-leader and really bolster that and how to tune into that. So each night there's a contemplation about an element of self-leadership, a light of self-leadership. And so there's this, and then of course the recording of your dreams, as I mentioned, and you can do as much or as little as you want. My goal is that this be a relaxing time, not that, oh my God, I have to finish this whole thing and write lots of detail. If you wrote one sentence about what your mood is and how you're feeling, it probably would still benefit you in the coming year to just notice. Or if you just read it and let yourself be present to some of the messages and like the virtue or the information on the lights of self-leadership, at least you're tuning in and connecting in that way. So yeah.
It just seems and sounds like a really nice way to take yourself away from your screens as well during those holy nights and days, and to be really tuning in, and it feels like a really creative thing as well. So such a lovely thing to do at this time of year. So people can still order these today, which is, what's today, the 2nd of December?
Yep, 2nd of December.
And there's some sort of cut off though, isn't there, in terms of, so that you can get them out? Is it, you start sending them from the 5th of December?
Yeah, they start shipping out this week. And so basically what happens is, so I live in the United States. Domestically here, you can order by the 15th or 15th to 17th and be pretty assured you're going to get it in time for December 24th. Internationally, I always tell people order it as soon as possible, and I prioritize the international shipments to go out right away. But the other thing to consider, especially internationally, because of course shipping can be expensive and all of that, is that usually sometime after the 15th, I usually do a pretty good job of calculating roughly how many I'll sell year to year. I will offer a digital version. And while I also encourage people to stay off screens, a lot of people will, they'll wait and they'll get the digital version after the 15th or so, somewhere around that time it comes out. And they might sit with like a little mobile device and a blank journal, and they'll look at the journaling prompts and then write in their own blank journal. And that works very well too. It allows you to tune in. It allows you to get it in time. So that's definitely possible as well. It's
that can work really well, can't it? It's like, I've got a little iPad, which I hardly ever use, only to maybe read some ebooks or whatever. So that can be a really nice way to do that. That sounds like such a lovely tradition to get into. I really look forward to getting mine. So
and I want to share too that I don't often advertise this. This is the first year I put it on the information page. I also have a private Facebook group that you'll be invited into when you buy the journal. And it's a community of people journaling, and everybody talks to each other and shares kind of what's up. I show up in the group. I often give additional video teachings to help, clarify or answer questions. I usually send out emails each day, or at least every other day, with videos and sharing. So it's almost like getting a course in addition to the journal, which is really nice. And whether you want to be online or not is completely up to you, but it's an option, especially for first-year journalers who might want, like, what exactly is this virtue about? Talk to me more about that. Like, I'll share details about that each night. So
that's really nice, because it's sort of, it's not like people have to show up and, like got this commitment, but they can go into that community if they want to. And that's really nice. So I'll put a link to the journal underneath the video here so people can check it out. And thanks for having this conversation with me. And it's been really interesting to learn about the tradition. And I can't wait to get stuck into mine.
So glad. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on and speaking to me. And we'll sign off for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you've got any questions about this, you can comment below, and Kim or I will get back to you. Bye for now.